multiple messages that the individual now transcends the team, that the pursuit of individual stardom, financial welfare, all of these things are now hegemonic in respect of the performance of the team. And this represented, of course, a subversion of all of the principles that Worrell had stood for. Then from Lara, we move fundamentally, structurally, to Mr. Gayle. And we see a continuation of that discourse. Gayle's arrival on the eve of a test match. His team is practicing, preparing for a test match. He turns up on the eve of the test match because he is playing festival cricket on another continent. And so he is playing IPL cricket in India. His team is training. He turns up. The team is defeated. The world sees this as a crisis. His response, leadership was thrust upon me. I don't want it. I was forced to captain this team. I have no interest in captaining. And the language of defiance. Now, that is where it had reached at that moment. We are now in a circumstance where individual cricketers are saying, through their actions and through their rhetoric, that the accumulation of their wealth is more important than the representation of the nation. Now, we might very well say that this is idealistic to critique that perspective, because what the cricketers are saying is, what has my country done for me? Show me the green. How can I represent a country that does not represent me? Now, this is an interesting dialogue because these individuals are saying that in their emergence as international sportsmen, that their societies did not invest in their creation, and that they owe the society very little because they are not products of an investment, that they've had to find their way through their own individual efforts. And we may very well question some of that. I think that the evidence is not always clear that that is true. But the view within the player culture at the moment is that I am a professional. I have my own intellectual property rights and my skill. Playing for my nation yields a secondary return. The market is a primary place for my wealth accumulation. And in the scheme of things, the nation comes second or third. Now, I'm sure many of you remember about 4 to 5 months ago, and I was in India when this news broke, when Mr. Bravo stated that in his priorities, his first commitment is to the Mumbai Indians, second commitment is to Trinidad and Tobago, and then thirdly, the West Indies cricket team. And that was a crisis in West Indies cricket. Of course, Mr. Bravo denied that this was true, and the matter was settled in that way. Now, that is, the West Indies cricket culture is now trying to put all of this into perspective. Is it true that as a society we have not empowered our youth, and that our youth are now looking back and seeing heroes living in poverty? That the heroes who represented the nation, the heroes who we celebrate, the Viv Richards and the Clive Lloyds and all of the great players who represented us magnificently, have not had the benefits of that representation? And is it true that the younger players are saying, we will not end our adulthood in poverty? We will not live in poverty in the years following our retirement. And therefore, until such time as the state is willing to invest in our material security, we will place our interests before the interests of the state. And now we have these images and we have these concepts of the individual citizenship and cricket. Does it represent a betrayal of the Frank Worrell? I am not quite so sure. In 1948, Frank Worrell refused to go with the West Indies team to India on tour. The argument he gave in 1948 was that he wanted to be paid the salary of a professional sportsman. The argument he gave was that all of his teammates were men who owned stocks and shares and plantations and companies, and they didn't need a salary because many of them were the corporate elite of the region and they were the owners of wealth. But he had a family to support and he needed a salary. And of course, he was not given that salary and he did not go. But he continued to push for cricket as an enterprise that offered not just status, but offered financial security to those persons who were celebrated as heroes. So finally then, what are the images we have of West Indies cricket and our heroes? Well, the images before us are as follows, that Frank Worrell is the father of the nation. Sobers is the king of cricket. Clive Lloyd is a statesman. Richards is a general of the army. Brian Lara is the prince. And Chris Gayle is the Don. And these are very interesting images, and indeed, because the movement from the father to the Don, and those who follow him and his cohort in the team do relate to him as their Don. And he has brought, it is said, the Don-manship into how things operate in the team. And what the West Indies board is trying to do at the moment is to uproot this Don-manship out of the culture in much the same way that the Jamaican people are trying to uproot Dudus from their politics. So the comparisons are very interesting indeed. Now, how do we put all of this finally into context? There is no doubt that there is a younger generation of cricketers that is emerging. And this younger generation is altogether unlike those who currently represent the West Indies team. It is not that the system has produced a consciousness that reproduces itself in a linear fashion. These younger players are reverting. They are looking to the Greenwiches and the Haynes and the Lloyds and the Holdings as their heroes. So these current younger players are bypassing their immediate predecessors, and they're looking at an earlier generation. And why is this? I spent a fair amount of time interviewing some of the younger players, and especially those who have just won in Dubai, the West Indies under-19 team. And this West Indies under-19 team is an interesting collection of very smart and bright young men, and it's a different quality of personality at the moment. They do not wish to be like Chris Gayle. They do not wish to be like Marlon Samuels. They wish to be like Clive Lloyd and Viv Richards and Michael Holden. They are seeing their heroes at an earlier time. They want to play for the West Indies. They want to rebuild West Indies cricket. They want to make it great again. And this is what they want to do. Many of them are now in the High Performance Center. They read extensively about the history of the game. They are studying the game very closely. Some of them are playing for the CCC, which is the university's team in the regional competition. And what they're saying is the beginning of a revolution taking place in West Indies cricket. One of the students in the CCC team placed a banner in the changing room during one of the recent matches. And it said team, and under the T it said talent. Under the E it was education. Under the A was attitude, and under the M was mentoring. And this is the strategy that they are working through in their own heads, that the West Indies team is being rebuilt and the culture is being rebuilt by a generation of young cricketers who are thinking, who are very clear on the legacy of West Indies cricket, and who are determined to reconnect to the Worrell model. They wish to refine the issues of the Worrell methodology, but philosophically, ideologically, this younger generation is trying to return to source. And all of us who are in the CCC project, and the HPC project, and the West Indies Youth Team project, we are trying to help them to fall back into that stream, because it is a stream that is still full of energy, it is fertile, and I do believe that the foundations for the fourth rising of West Indies cricket are being laid as I speak to you. So in 3 to 4 to 5 years, it is my best judgment that this younger crop will take us back where we belong. I thank you.